I used to think love required an inventory, like counting the glasses after a party to make sure nothing broke, tallying what came in and what went out to confirm nothing was lost. Then 30 happened, and with it a relationship that didn't ask for records like proof of purchase. I'm 30 now, in a committed partnership, and the person in my bed cares about whether I sleep through thunderstorms and how I take my tea more than he cares about arithmetic that has nothing to do with us. I'm grateful for that. I'm also angry that so many people are still told their past makes them unworthy of a future. Body count. The phrase lands like a police report. The way it gets used turns stories into statistics and human beings into reputations. When I say I'm tired of it, I don't mean just hypothetically. I mean I've watched women and men decide they are disqualified from tenderness because someone on the internet posted a graph about pair bonding as if attachment were a coupon that expires after a certain number of uses. I've watched people break up with good partners because a number spooked them like a house settling at night. Meanwhile, the reality of a relationship is boring in the way that saves lives. Groceries, gentle apologies, the choice to communicate before anger becomes theater. There's a double standard so old it thinks it's a tradition. Men with long lists are called experienced. Women with the same lists are issued warnings. Women with short lists are praised for restraint or dismissed as naive. Men with short lists are shamed for inexperience unless the person shaming them needs a cudgel for something else. The worst part is not the hypocrisy. It's that people internalize it, build homes out of it, hang curtains over it, and then wonder why the light in their lives is always the color of someone else's fear. I've had 5 partners since I decided to treat my 20s like a map, not a maze. Casual did not mean careless. It meant honest about capacity. It meant knowing when desire could be its own conversation without having to turn into furniture. Then, last year, I met a person whose presence didn't require any plot twist, just consistency. 8 months in, we hold the small domestic miracles together. The trash goes out, the sheets get washed, the arguments end with a hand offered, and the future looks like a table set for 2 and whoever we invite. If someone needs the number 5 to decide whether or not I deserve this, they're not a person I need trying to hold my joy by the throat. None of this means everybody should want what I want. Some people carry vows in their bones. Some people want their first times to be their only times. Some people want a lower number because it's aligned with faith, family, or personal comfort. That's not prudish, that's preference. What's not preference is weaponizing those choices against people who live differently. There's a difference between standards and shame. Standards point inward, what I will and won't do, what I need and what I can give. Shame points outward, what you should be humiliated for until you conform. Compatibility is not about the past, it's about how 2 people hold each other now. Shared values matter more than shared statistics. A low number can hide cruelty. A high number can hide tenderness. This isn't moral relativism, it's an inventory of what actually makes a home. If someone is loyal now, communicates clearly now, and shows up for the boring parts now, then the arithmetic of before is trivia. Love is not a multiple-choice test. It's an essay graded on whether the sentences make sense when read aloud together. I met Iris at 17 when we both tripped over the same joke in calculus class and decided to share a desk for the rest of our lives. We shared dorm food, heartbreaks, and a language that didn't require subtitles. We also shared a misunderstanding about what forever means. Forever is not a promise so much as a practice, and you can practice yourself into a corner if you're not careful. 2 years ago, she moved to a mid-sized city where the buses are reliable and the coffee is ambitious. She got a job at a design firm that put her ideas in windows, and she fell in with a group that liked mountain hikes and board game nights. Somewhere between switching out her wardrobe and learning how to cook 3 soups perfectly, she got engaged to a man named Nolan who had an easy laugh and a careful haircut. I didn't meet him in person until last fall when I flew in for a long weekend, a suitcase full of sweaters and a heart full of catching up. At the airport, he hugged me the way people hug when they want to be remembered for being warm. It lasted a beat too long. He said, "You look incredible," and his eyes did an unnecessary inventory. Iris smiled, distracted, as if she was still arriving. In the car, he turned the music up shaped like my nostalgia and asked me questions that sounded like conversation but were really a way to find out where the edges of my boundaries were. It took me a night to translate it. At dinner, he poured wine after I said no politely. He laughed when Iris told a story about a scare she'd had last spring, an irregular cycle, a pregnancy test taken at midnight, a morning of relief. He said, "She's dramatic," like a joke, then said, "She doesn't trust her own body," not like a joke. Iris fiddled with her napkin and changed the subject to the salad's dressing. Later, in the living room, he floated the idea of all three of us watching a movie in their bed, for nostalgia. Iris's face did a flicker, then froze in a position that looked like consent to someone who never learned how to read. "No thanks," I said. I was cheerful like a person closing a door without slamming it. The next morning, on the way to breakfast, he blocked the hallway just long enough for my spine to feel the memory of being small. "You sleep like the dead," he said in a tone he wanted me to hear as teasing. "Didn't even stir." The insinuation turned the room sharp. I said, "What does that mean?" His laugh spilled like something that thought it could sanitize itself by being loud. "Nothing. Relax." Iris called from the kitchen about jam flavors. I put my shoes on even though we weren't leaving for 10 more minutes. Over the next 8 hours, Nolan escalated his way through the world's worst checklist. He reached for my waist as we walked through a crowded doorway and kept his hand there past polite. He called Iris silly for wanting to discuss birth control differentials. He suggested shots at 3 p.m. because vacation rules, then pouted when I said water would keep me alive. In the evening, he asked 3 times for Iris and me to kiss as if repetition could manufacture consent. I told him to stop. He said he was being playful. During the movie, he moved closer. Iris disappeared into herself like a person practicing invisibility as survival. When I stood up and said, "I'm leaving," he put himself between me and the door. He is 6 feet and something, I am not. He leaned on the frame like he invented it. I said, "Move." Iris said nothing. He said, "Don't be a drama queen," which is something people say when they have run out of better words for control. I put my hands on his shoulders and shoved myself past him the way you slide your body through a tight crowd on a subway platform. No apology for existing. He reached out and caught air. I packed with frantic dignity and booked a hotel room 15 minutes away with a lobby that smelled like lemons and safety. I waited for Iris to call. She didn't. I texted her a brief message. "I love you, that was not okay." She replied 9 hours later with, "Can we talk next week?" I said, "Of course." Next week arrived like a train you hear but don't see. If body count is the wrong rule, consent is the right one. I'm not saying a number is never relevant. Sex health matters, honesty matters, attachment styles matter, but the question isn't how many. It's how do you hold me? The question isn't are you pure? It's are you safe? What makes a relationship worth staying in is not math. It's method. My boyfriend and I have a rule. Curiosity that protects, not curiosity that performs control. We talk about exes when they matter because histories can leave you maps if you're brave enough to read them. We don't resurrect dead stories to feed insecurity. We handle attraction like weather. Acknowledge, prepare, don't blame the sky for being its nature. We share passwords for the streaming services and not for each other's phones. We tell each other when we're lonely before the loneliness drafts its own emails to strangers. When Iris finally agreed to a video call, she looked fine. People think you can diagnose truth from a face. You can't. You can only watch for the way words drive into corners. I told her what happened as if she hadn't been there, because sometimes witnesses go blind when the person they love is the one doing the thing that needs witnessing. She listened until listening became a flavor she couldn't swallow. Then she cried. Then she said she'd loved me since we were 18. She said that when I came to visit, she and Nolan had planned, these are her words, not mine, a scenario. She said she thought I'd be flattered. She said she thought it would prove something about us that she couldn't find another way to prove. I asked, "Whose idea?" She said, "Mine first, his immediately after." I asked, "Do you hear how that sounds?" she said. "I hear it now. The call went ugly the way. A scrape goes ugly when the air hits it." She said I'd been leading her on for years with my kindness. She said my new relationship was proof I'd always been attracted to the idea of hurting her. She criticized my clothes and my voice and my hair, the way people grab at whatever is within reach when drowning. Then she told me to do something final to myself that I won't write down here because certain sentences don't belong in print. I ended the call and sat there with my heart banging like a loose window. I blocked Nalan's number. I did not block Iris's. Blocking is a boundary. It's also a door. I wanted this door to be ajar for the day she might want to walk through it with better shoes. When messages came from her that alternated between apology and accusation, I muted the thread and sat on my hands. Silence is also a boundary. It's not always punishment. My boyfriend made tea. He listened to the entire story like a person ringing a bell in their ribs just to keep the rhythm. He said, "You did exactly what a person who loves someone does. You told the truth, and you left the room when truth wasn't enough to keep you safe." I slept under his arm and remembered that I never want to be with someone who needs a ledger for comfort. Spring put leaves back on the branches that had looked like exclamation points all winter. I started running because moving forward seemed like the point. I ran past couples on porches counting their blessings and the cars that made them possible. I ran past the yoga studio where people were learning to breathe with strangers and the bar where people were unlearning loneliness with loudness. I ran past the courthouse where some other pair of people were probably arguing about numbers that used to feel romantic and now just felt like math. Ira sent a message in May. "We're getting married," she wrote. "I would like you there." I said, "I hope your day is peaceful. I can't attend." She replied, "You were always going to say that," as if refusing to stand in a room with a man who had turned my body into a dare was a failure of courage, not a definition of it. I didn't respond. Sometimes the answer is already in the first sentence. At a summer festival my friends dragged me to because you need to be around joy. I saw Nalan in line for tacos. He came up behind me and wrapped his arms around me like we were playing a game I hadn't joined. My body did what bodies do when they remember being told they were furniture. It thrashed. He let go quickly, smirking. "Relax," he said. I did not. I found my friends, told them what happened, let them be my taller, louder hallway. We left. Outside, under the string lights that the city had decided were its personality, I cried in the way you cry when shock loosens its grip. Then we got funnel cakes and ate them like medicine. Here is the part where I tell you I am fine. I am, but I mean the version of fine that includes scars. I don't go to Iris's city anymore. I don't follow her online. If she calls me and says the words, "I am safe now," and can say them without flinching, I will answer and I will show up. Until then, love does not require my body as collateral for someone else's confusion. And here is the part where I return to the beginning, to numbers and what they are not. My boyfriend and I are a year in. We've had 3 big fights and 4 bigger laughs that started at midnight and ended with us trying not to wake the neighbors. We've told each other things we're not proud of and watched the other person not turn into a judge. We've had Tuesday pasta and Friday pizza, and on Sunday we grocery shop like it's a sport we trained for. We've said no to questions that were attempts at control. We've said yes to questions that were attempts at understanding. We've counted exactly what matters, how many times we choose each other on days that don't have holidays in them. If a number is your value system, build with it. Find someone who shares it and loves you for the way you keep score. But if you think your value is your count, let this be the permission you didn't know you were waiting for. You are not a receipt. You're not a ledger. You are a person with hands that can hold and a mouth that can apologize and a spine that can stand up and a heart that can be mended without being measured. Ask better questions. Not how many, but how do we? How do we argue? How do we forgive? How do we keep our hands where they belong? How do we make a home that doesn't require anyone to disappear to feel safe? How do we refuse the scripts that taught us to sort people by numbers and call it wisdom? How do we love without inventory? There's a photo on my fridge held up by a magnet shaped like a pear. It's my boyfriend and me, joke laughing at a dinner we couldn't afford but decided to anyway because the bread came with a story. Behind us, out of focus, a couple clinks their glasses together like an agreement. I like to think we're all celebrating the same thing. That what we count and what we keep are not the same. And that the most valuable part of love is the part you can't tally because it happens in the quiet, on ordinary days, when no one is scoring and the only thing that matters is the fact that you're both still at the table. Still at the table.